And that's the cool thing. I think in this point already of this year, probably a lot of you already tried to use ChatGPT in some point or other AI tools. Okay, I'm Juno. I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, 1 dog. Also, I teach like a UX UI design. So I have like a newsletter that I write weekly or every 2 weeks, depend on my agenda on that week. But I try to do that. So this is the small agenda that I created for us, like what is the ChatGPT? Most of you guys probably already know, but I will explain also about like a UX and AI and how we, like we have all these tools right now. What happened actually in this world to nowadays, like this year actually, especially having like so many like new tools launching like every week, right? Like if you are on Instagram or LinkedIn, pretty much every week if you open, it's gonna be someone saying about a new tool, right? Which is crazy. And a little bit of the future of AI. Also, I have a list of AI tools. There's a lot, of course. Now there's some that is like a little bit more popular than other ones. And by the end, like some Q&A to, like ask whatever you want. So the only thing that I don't answer, just to be very clear on that point, I don't answer my horoscope sign, okay? I will explain later, but this, if you want to ask, I won't answer for you, okay? Good, let's go. So first question, right? Like, and this was very interesting because the person that asked me that was a Google engineer, and he's like work on the AI. It's very interesting. This happened like in the beginning of the year when I was driving back from New York to Atlanta. And it was a coincidence because my wife, she has this friend from Brazil, and she married this guy, and they live in DC, so we can stop by just to have a dinner, whatever. And we stay like 4 hours, I think, like, or even more, like talking about everything, and it was super nice. And we were talking about AI, and it was crazy because it was pretty much like the beginning of all the things that happened this year, since the beginning of the year. And this was like the first week of the 2023. And he asked me that, right? Like about what do you think is gonna fly better, right? A plane or a bird, right? And that's, if you wanna answer on the chat, by the way, like it will be very interesting to see the answers, right? What do you guys think? A bird, Nicole. Birds, okay. Birds, everybody, that's good. That's good to know. The nature is better than technology, right? And that's very clear in some point because, like to make an airplane and fly, you use a lot of power, right? Like to make that happen, right? There's a lot of effort. And birds, they don't need to do all that to fly. And also, if you think, the plane just go in one direction pretty much, right? They just go forward. And the bird can fly, go up and down, change directions pretty fast and all this stuff. So that's why this was also the inspiration for engineers to start building AI. So that's the thing, that's the answer, which is crazy. We were like always as humans trying to go through one path that was like, let's build technology and testing new things, and this will think about physics, whatever, and this will work, and in some way work, right? We have all these like airplanes, airports, whatever in nowadays. But for the next step for humans or technology, they start like taking a new approach, right? So that's why we start raising all this AI crazy stuff of this year, right? Of course, it didn't start this year, but that's the principle that happened, okay? So how many of you guys know this game Go on the right? You guys know? Okay, a few people. So this game is pretty old. I'm not sure if you know that. Like this is like I think the oldest like a board game, right? That was created. It's really simple, the rules. I can like explain the rules like in 5 minutes for anybody, but the problem is not about the rules, but it's about how to play the game, right? Because it's like a infinite ways to play the game. And by the way, there's like one thing, you know, that all martial arts belts, they are inspired on the level of this game. You know, a lot of people, they don't know that. So there's like all these like belts are like a linked to the same ranking system that they created for this game. So imagine that this is the oldest board game in the world, right? So the idea is pretty much that chess is a game that it's easy to calculate in some way, right? Because you have positions that you can not change too much. Each one of the pieces, they have specific commands that they need to follow, right? So that was pretty easy for engineers to build a computer, right? To calculate all the multiple options to win from a human, right? So this is already old if you think about. But if you think about Go, only in 2016, actually, someone created a computer that could beat a human, you know? And you know that in Go world, it was even like a joke, like a computers never won like a human. It was a joke. So there's this very cool documentary on Netflix, right? The professional player, there was like another computer to play, right? Like, because they were like, okay, this is not gonna happen, right? And that was the thing when they start changing from what we say the classic AI approach for this new like a neural network or deep learning that is like this modern approach for artificial intelligence, right? So this is like pretty much the comparison for the bird and the plane, right? Like, so they need to took another approach to start making different calculations and learn from different experience and everything to make this machine keep learning. So it's very interesting. Just one detail about the documentary. Of course, I don't want to say about everything about the documentary, but you should watch, is because the player did like some changes on the strategy, right? And like any other sports or game, there's some a place that is not beautiful, right? Let's say basketball, whatever, it doesn't look good, but it's a point, right? It's a very weird way to shoot 3 points, but the person is scored a point, right? So in the middle of the game, the human player did that. He made a play that was considered very ugly, right? For professionals. And but that was the strategy to win from the computer, and he won, right? But after that, the computer learned other possibilities, and pretty much after that, the human never won anymore from the computer, which is crazy, right? So the thing is AI, because of this neural network, they keep learning really, really fast, right? So everything that you input, they're going to storage and they're going to use and they're going to improve and keep going, right? So that's one of the things that we're going to talk, but you can start thinking that any AI tool that you are using, they just say thank you, right? Because you're just giving me more information, and they're going to be much more stronger, a little by little, right? So that's the principle of AI. So that's why some people that understand more and more about AI, all these people that left Google, whatever, they are concerned about that, because every input that we are giving to AI, they are improving the algorithm and this neural network for them. Okay, it's fun, but you're just helping them also anyways. Okay, cool. So ChatGPT pretty much is this language model that it was created by OpenAI, right? And this is there's this story that a lot of people say that it was a conversation between Elon Musk and Larry Page, and Larry Page was concerned about the AI, whatever, and Google was doing a lot of research, but pretty much was very private, the research, right? They're not going, they were like developing all the technology, but not sharing with the world. And Elon Musk had this idea, okay, I will build another one, but instead of like keeping private, we are gonna do this like open to the world, and everybody will start like using that. But also, not only that, they got investment from not only from like other VCs, but also, as you know, like Bill Gates is one of the like people behind of ChatGPT, right? So they invested in 2020 $1 billion, but it was more in infrastructure, not cash. It was like, okay, you guys can use our servers, you can use like whatever you may need to run, because that's one thing that people don't know, but running every like a request costs a lot of money. And this is like this guy from Google told me, you know, that every time that you hit the send button on ChatGPT, cost them 7 cents. Maybe now it's like a less than 7 cents, but a little bit, but costs 7 cents, because they need to use all this power from all these machines. And it's fast for you. Of course, you have, sometimes you have to wait, right? Like you wait a couple of seconds and they process and give you the answer. But that's why they need to start like charging from people to make sure that this will work. So Midjourney also is another one that, you know, they can create images, all this stuff. So that's why now it's like a paid feature, because otherwise, like they cannot even keep up with all the costs to run the servers, right? They have investors, of course, and everything, but they really need like to make money. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to keep up with the servers, right? Another thing that is changing a lot on that is because we know that ChatGPT especially, they don't have recent data, right? Because they have like I don't know like exactly the year, but because they pretty much, they use all the database they can find on the web, but recent data they don't have. There's like some people, yeah, 2021, okay, perfect. So there's some other companies, they say about that, because they say, oh, we have like recent data. Actually, I tested. They don't have like 100% up to date, because I was okay. So if they have the last information, let me test. I was like, okay, write like an article about the last game of Lakers, whatever, right? I was like, okay, so if they have, it's gonna be like a yesterday night, and they couldn't grab all the information, right? So it's like a kind of, I think they need to process all this data, but of course, in some point will be instant, right? It's gonna be like Google, right? Google is almost instant. They can they created already all the infrastructure for that, right? And another thing that I learned from this dinner, talking with an engineer, right? It was about that, right? 2021, and also all the story that we know as human about the world up to 2021, right? So what happened, like, and why Google and a lot of people from Google are super concerned about that is because they ran a lot of different tests internally. And the problem is that some of the results is very biased, right? So one thing they are super concerned, and he was explaining to me, is like the problem is if you see all the books, right? We tell about the story from the winner perspective, right? So that's the problem. So if we say about, okay, so all the things that happen, they discover America or whatever, so you have one perspective, right? And the weight, because of like what exactly is true, the computer, they don't know what is true, right? They are gonna, okay, but there's much more material talking about that from this perspective versus this perspective, right? So they're gonna say, maybe this is true and this is not 100% accurate, because it's the same thing if I write a new article, creating a new word, whatever, saying different things, the relevance of that information is really small, right? So the problem that they were like, he was telling me, is because with AI, the chances of like having this gap bigger and bigger for the future will be crazy. So that's why the problem of AI, right? Like it's good to release, good to give all that tool for humans, but also depending on what we are doing, this will create much more problems as a society for us, right? So this is another thing that is very interesting. Okay, so of course, like ChatGPT got like into the news because also they had like 1 million users like using the register on their platform in 5 days, and took like years for all these products, right, to get to the same point. If you think about Instagram, took like 2.5 months, but like they did this in 5 days, which is insanely crazy, right, if you think about it. So Netflix, Airbnb, all those other companies, right, took like years, but it's a very interesting comparison to see how powerful was like the media and everything else on those past few months, right? Okay, so let me do a pause. I don't know if you have questions, just like keep posting the question, right? Because by the end we are gonna have a session to answer all the questions. But now let's jump into the design thinking process and UX UI, right? Like how we can use AI for that. I think you're more concerned about that, right? Because maybe they can take your job, right? Okay, so this is pretty common and popular for us, right? Like UX designers already know the double diamond process, right? I really like that instead of using like the 5 steps, because I think this is pretty clear to see that in the first diamond, first part, first half, you are exploring and trying to grab more information. After you try to, you know, like narrow down, organizing information. After you brainstorm, do different stuff to start collecting more information on the second diamond, and you narrow down, right? So it's like I like to use this visual representation to work. And this is how we're gonna do things today, right? So I just listed a few things here, right? Like a lot of different methodologies, of course, that we can use, but I just left just a few of them here just to use on the presentation, right? So interviews, surveys, empty map, persona, a lot of things that is very common for us, and how we can do that using AI. Okay, so I will show like a different tools, but of course, my idea is like starting from ChatGPT. So I start like doing interviews, right? Questions. So I was like thinking about creating some product for someone that was like planning to go to Rio, right? I'm from Brazil, by the way, you know, like so I love Brazil, of course. And Rio, I live in Rio for like 3 years. It's like one of the most beautiful places to visit. You should go, right? In some point in your life. Sometimes not safe. I know that, you know, like I'm from Brazil. I know that sometimes not safe. So just go with a lot of people together. Okay. Oh, we can go together, everybody, right? So I take you guys to the safest area, right? And we'll be all good. But the idea was, okay, so instead of, you know, brainstorm all the questions with your team, right? Like it was easy to me just to prompt that, right? Like just build like a interview questions for people that wants to like visit Rio, right? Only that. And pretty much ChatGPT created 10, and you can just ask like add more 10 questions, 5 questions, whatever, add questions about, you know, like planning, whatever. They will create and give you some options, right? Of course, that's the problem from the initial part, right? Could be a little bit biased, could be a little bit wrong, some information. So that's the thing about you can use, but you should for sure review all that, right? Before using all the information. Maybe in some years, that's the thing, because we are inputting more information little by little to ChatGPT. They're gonna learn that and they're gonna improve, and probably in 5 years, they will be very, very like accurate on like the answers they will give us, right? Okay, so we have like 10 answers here, like just some examples, right? Like just to know like a little bit more like how things that we could learn from our users. Okay, so from this, I was okay. So let me try to build something that will create like more quantitative data, right, for my study. And it was very interesting because I just prompted that this like a phrase, and they just created that for me. It was more than 9. It was like 15 questions, and they already gave me all the options to answer those questions, which is like very interesting because learning about Rio, one of the questions they even listed some options that is very touristic, right? Like so, they have like a Copacabana, Ipanema, Lapa, Santa Teresa. There is like a places that people really wants to visit. So it's very interesting that they could already grab things like this because probably they already know, you know, like the most popular places in Rio, and they just bring that information to here to the survey so people can answer and select that, right? So there's a lot of things. Very interesting. Okay, so after that, and that's the thing, because I on this process, I was just like pretty much just requesting those things without adding any new data for them, right? For ChatGPT. I could, for example, if I do interviews and I have like answers, will be very interesting to start sending the answers to ChatGPT so they will understand the context more and more about my research. So if you use like the paid version, you can upload PDF files and everything else, right? So maybe you could upload all the answers, all the transcripts from interviews, and they can base it on those transcripts, answer you things and build an empathy map a little bit more, you know, accurate on the data because you just uploaded all the data for them, right? So this probably will change little by little, but for now was like a very simple. The way that I did was just sending those requests and getting those answers. Okay. And after this, they just created a simple empathy map. So feelings, people are very excited. This person was very excited, nervous about safety and health, right? And determined to make the most of their trip, right? So the main pain point here is the safety concern. I know a lot of people, right? Brazil is not very, it's famous for that, right? Because it's a little bit dangerous, I would say, right? Another thing is the high cost of transportation and accommodation, right? So there's and another one was a limit knowledge of local culture and language. Okay, so those are the things that it was very interesting to understand how they organized to me, right? So I'm not going into every detail, but at least you can read that later on. So I asked after that to build a persona, just build a persona, and I defined South Korea because just to have something that is totally the opposite, the language is not even close, things like this. A little bit biased, right? Because my family is from Korea, okay? But anyways, I was like, okay, let me try something that is totally the opposite from Brazil, just to make sure what's gonna happen. And it's very interesting because without any data, they created this persona, right? They created the name, the demographics, a little bit, you know, education, income, all the demographic data, some goals and motivation to go to Brazil, right? Why they want to do that? Because they have a break from the work, and she wants to improve a little bit of the Portuguese skills, right? There's a lot of different things, and try new foods, right? And join a local activities and things like that. So the pain points, they kept the same, right? Like a safety, language, budget, because I know that sometimes to travel to Brazil, it's a little bit expensive, right? And all this other information, behaviors and things like this, and even devices they use when they are traveling, and even some quotes. What's pretty cool. Okay, and this is without any data, right? I'm not even inputting any data from a real research. And after that, I asked, can you build like a journey map for me? And pretty much they created different phases on the journey map, which is I really like. Of course, this could be much better adding like actions, emotions, a lot of different steps, different lanes, right? That we use usually on a journey map canvas. But those phases, it was pretty interesting to have as a starting point, because you have awareness, consideration, decision, booking process, arrival, experience, departure, right? Loyalty. So there's a lot of different phases. And of course, we could work on top of that and, like explore that a lot in the future, right? And after this, I asked like, okay, let's write a problem statement just to, synthesize the research and have that to help us to start like jumping to the UI part or ideation part. So they just wrote like a very interesting problem statement. You could ask like it should reduce a little bit, or like it should be more, like a straight to the point in some specific parts, depending on how you're like driving this research. But it's pretty good, right? That's the problem of and that discussion about there's a lot of portfolios from now that is going to be really hard for recruiters, designers to understand if this is like something that was, created by like a human or by AI, right? This is going to be the problem for sure. And another question that probably will raise, because my spouse asked me that, right? Okay, but like you can create all that, but someone will create like a fact check, like a software that can check from AI, right? But that's the problem, because the neural network, it doesn't work like that. It's pretty smart. They can use and reuse different parts and create different versions that is going to be almost impossible to trace that, right? And that's the thing, like tech words is like that, right? There's no second place, right? Because once like a ChatGPT or whatever is going to take off from now, to start building something to take that or to try to reach is like almost impossible, right? If you do the math, it's like almost impossible, because the rate of growth, like you need to do like an app or something that you're gonna get 1 million users in 4 days or 3 days, right? Like or something like that, right? Because otherwise it's almost impossible now to start like reaching the same level of some of those applications, Midjourney, all this stuff, right? So if you think about even Adobe, right? Using all the power that Adobe they have, they don't build everything by themselves anymore, right? They need to connect to different APIs. If you are following also some Instagram accounts, it's crazy, right? Like what Photoshop, Illustrator, they are doing right now, it's crazy, but they don't build anything by themselves. Probably they're using other tools like that. And this is making those AIs more and more powerful, right? So that's the thing. Nobody's going to start from zero to compete on the market. After that, I was, okay, so let's jump into information architecture, right? A little bit, build some user flows to see how this is going to work. And they build like 4 different user flows here about safety concerns, language barriers, right? Budgeting for expenses, and navigating in the city, right? So it was like a very interesting, like the user, right? The persona opens the travel app, on the trip to Rio, filters the app recommendations, and included only options in safe neighborhoods, right? That provides a list of recommended hotels in these neighborhoods. And the user reads reviews, compare price, and find the best option. And she books the hotel in a safe neighborhood, right? So it's very interesting, because without any input, like they pretty much, they can come up with like a very interesting suggestions to do, right? And that's the thing, is everything is like for now, maybe like just a starting point, but it's pretty cool, like what you can do with AI. And also, because sometimes you're not creative, right? You know that. sometimes you wake up and you have like a very inspiring morning and you're like, okay, today I can build, I'm Steve Jobs, right? I can do everything, right? Very creative apps, beautiful design, minimalistic, right? All this stuff. No, sometimes it's not like that, right? And you don't have any idea what should I do, right? And maybe your boss is like, hey, you need to come up with some ideas, right? We should discuss to the meeting, and you just ask ChatGPT, hey, just make 5 ideas for me, right? So I have something to present to them in this meeting, right? So they created some very interesting apps, and they create the name of the app already, Safe Travels. That is like a that shows like the crime data on the neighborhoods, hotels, transportation. Lingua, there's a real-time translator. The Budget Explorer that helps to track the expenses. Rio Navigator to help you. It's almost a Google Maps pretty much. And the Memory Keeper just to help you to, like save all your photos, memories about your trip, right? So pretty cool. Some of them is not the best, but it's good enough to, to start doing that. Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, by the way, Ivana, about intellectual property. And it's very interesting because my sister, she's an attorney, right? And we have been talking about that a lot. On the gaming company that I work, we have been discussing about that also, because a lot of people prompt about that, right? Like about create like this illustration with a Disney style, right? And it's not a Disney character, but it's just a style, right? And that's a huge like a gray area right now, because they don't know exactly how to handle that. So there's a lot of discussion on that. I know that the attorney that it's inside the company, he's like a part of a group that they shared is a lot of like attorneys from tech companies, and they are like discussing a lot of different things that's going to happen for the future. So yeah, and there's a lot of things about this, even about this market that probably will change, and there's a couple of things that may not change much in the future, and we can talk about this on the Q&A for sure. So after that, I asked like to make like this test plan, right? Like, because we're gonna build the application, and that's the crazy thing, because we don't even have the application. We don't even have on this point nothing, but they can create it like a little bit a plan for that, right? Like the goals of the test, the participants, the procedure, what type of equipment we need to use, some criterias and deliverables. So, that's the crazy thing, because without any context, they can build that. But imagine if you can save all this like a data and giving better context. So I think all these like UX repository tools, they should like start using AI as soon they can, right? Like I know that some they are trying this or that, but imagine all your research data is there, and then pretty much they can scan all this data and can even build a persona for you, right? I was discussing that on my breakout room, right? It will be super cool if someone create that and they can have a persona that can answer things based on the data, right? I know that humans are a little bit more complicated than that, but it's going to be pretty useful, right? Instead of like trying to go back and read again all the data that you have from your research. And by the end, and that's the thing, everything that I'm showing you is like the process that I was just prompting one by one, all these questions, one by one. I wasn't like adding any extra thing. It was just like those prompts and answers. And that's the thing, because they start understanding the context, right, from the other answers. And ChatGPT just keep going on that. So you have like this case study, because you want to add this beautiful piece, right, on your portfolio, right, to get a new job, whatever. So you are super proud about that, right? Because you did like not a lot of effort to have that, but anyways, it's gonna be on your portfolio, right? And that will be the very challenging thing for the future, but pretty cool to have that. Maybe I see, you know, like a whiteboarding, like a challenges, things like that, or live stuff coming more and more during the interviews, because, you know, like people really want to see if you can handle that, right? Like, okay, so if you know how to do these on Figma or you whatever, they will ask you to do live, I think, you know, because otherwise it's going to be pretty impossible to, I think, filter all the, you know, candidates for one job position. So the hi-fi, I just asked it, like I use like a Midjourney to do that, and they just created like a few options. I would say it's not the best in some cases, like but it's good enough. Thinking about that, I just prompted like a very simple thing, right? Probably that's the thing, like people are asking about that or talking about this, like you're gonna have like a people that just know how to prompt better, right? Like than other people, right? They know how to add the right keywords and everything. So sometimes I watch like a YouTube videos, and it's very interesting because some guys they know like this, you have to change these keywords for that one, the order of the keywords, whatever, and you can create like a pretty cool stuff, right? And sometimes you can even like upload pictures, and they can use that emoji as a starting point. So imagine like if you already have like a UI, and like Midjourney pretty much will understand the design that you have and start building on top of that only, right? Rather than starting from zero and bringing like a random stuff, right? But if someone add those things on the portfolio or dribble, whatever, will look super cool, right? So that's the crazy thing. And after this, I was already like testing other like prompts just to see, but they created some other pretty cool design and like a little bit more clean and everything else. And I was thinking about like, okay, so you can also, after having your case study done, you could even also create like a deck, right? If you need to present on your work. So I tested this Tommy app that pretty much you can prompt, and they can just create a lot of like a slide decks based on what you need. What's very interesting, maybe it's not the best yet, but that's the thing, they are keeping improving, right? Every time that someone is like requesting new stuff, they're like improving. And probably in some point, even the decks that you are like you know, seeing in presentation and meetings is like created by an AI, right? You and the humans just presenting that pretty much, right? Later on. So will be AI everywhere, right? So I have like a few tools here, but there's like I start like making a list. There's like hundreds now, right? Some of them pretty bad, some of them good, some of apps they're implementing inside their tools, like a Notion, Grammarly, whatever. They're like adding on top of the tool they already have. But my recommendation on this point, I would say, for sure, using Resume Word, Tick Resume, Interview AI, those ones I think you should use right now. And that's like a conversation that I had like with a recruiter that he's a good friend. And he told me like the problem right now is because all the softwares, if you don't use those keywords, you never pass the bots, right? You don't pass. So there's no human that is gonna read your CV or see your portfolio, right? So if you don't use that, so Resume Word, I think they recommended that you have to have your CV and the keywords that you use needs to pass, I think, 80%. If you don't pass 80%, zero chance that a human will check your CV. Okay, so that's the thing. If you want to get a job, you have to super optimize your CV right now. I have actually a list of keywords that someone gave to me, and it's very interesting because you have to add those keywords, some of them, on your CV. Otherwise, you're not gonna pass. Okay, which is crazy. And after that, you're gonna get to an interview, right? And this interview AI, the last one here, they create answers from questions for you, right? So it's a good way to practice also, right? Because at least like you can browse, like there's a lot of Medium articles, whatever, with questions from this interview, that interview, and you can help like have AI to answer that better for you, and you can of course practice by yourself, right? I have like a student, she told me like in the past that she wrote all the answers on the stick notes and place on the monitor, because all the like a lot of like interviews are remote, and she was like having all the answers already ready to answer close to her, and was crazy, you know. And she passed like in a couple of interviews. Now of course she's working in one of the companies, but that's the crazy thing, right? Like if you don't use all this power, most likely you're not gonna get a job, right? And that's gonna happen, which is crazy. So you use that, right? Like I tested that. My wife, she told me you shouldn't be doing that, because by concept, pretty much they are learning from every picture that you upload, right? So if you think about it, the crazy thing is, because remember that Facebook challenge that you post a picture from you right now and 10 years ago, that was actually a test, because they could pretty much start scanning faces and trying to, you know, like build their AI to understand how to, you know, improve that tool, right? So this is the result of like all these different tools, right? So this is like my future avatar, right, on Apple Vision Pro, maybe, I don't know, right? So this is gonna happen. So and also there's like other tools that Midjourney, they created like a humans, which is crazy, right? Like so we don't know if those people exist or not, but the only thing that we know that they can use all this data and they can mix and match with all the different information, and they will create like a real like a pictures like that looks very real for us. But in the future we don't know, right? Like that's the thing. Maybe I think like journalists, whatever, they like people on the TV, maybe we don't need them anymore, right? Like because they just say the news for us, right? We don't need like maybe actors, or right, like there's a lot of things that probably we won't need, but maybe we will need like or we are going to appreciate more live performance, right? Like people that, you know, they really play music, they really can perform in front of people. Maybe this will happen, right? And even in sports, right? Like that's the thing about the human potential. We want to see like a human, right, that can, you know, perform like in a natural way, right? Not that natural, right? We know that some like a professional athletes, they use crazy stuff also, right? So they are not 100% natural. And that's the thing. This is like one of the things about from my conversation with like this guy from Google also. And we were talking about that. This QR code also, there's links to the article that I wrote, but pretty much the workforce that we have nowadays is like a human, right? Probably your boss is a human, right? Or you manage humans that you know. But little by little, this is going to change, right? AI is already in a different layers of this like workforce. And the Google vision is like for that, it's everybody will work or will manage AI. So the workforce will be human AI, human AI, human AI in some point, right? And maybe even having a AI CEO, right? That's a very interesting question, because maybe CEOs, they can like be replaced first also, because that's the thing. A lot of people in some talks, like I was like talking with different people, they say, oh, this is gonna replace like a blue collars first. I don't know, maybe not, right? That's the thing, maybe not. And that's the question, like who is the boss of Uber drivers, right? Is already an AI, right? Because the AI is already deciding who they need to pick it up here and live there and take this food here or there. So that's the crazy thing, right? Like it's already an AI, and who manages that AI is like a product designers and developers for now, right? They manage this AI that manages the Uber drivers that we know, right? But things will change, right? And we don't know what exactly is going to be, you know, like the future. But this is going to be in different layers of our workforce, our society, and things like this. And that's why a lot of people are really concerned about that, right? We don't know. And another question that raised about that, it's why, like US, especially, they are super concerned about that. Even having like a ChatGPT, whatever, the crazy thing is because who holds most of the patents about AI is not even US, right? It's China. So like it's crazy. It's like China and South Korea, right? And in order to compete, so that's the thing. Like if you think IBM, Microsoft, Google, right? They have to, you know, like merge all these forces, whatever, to keep fighting, like for the future. And this is like a kind of like it's already happening, right? Because countries nowadays, they are not helping each other, right? If you don't know, like Trump already, like years ago, it was something that US nowadays, they don't export chips to China, right? Because otherwise you're helping them to process more data. So this is something that don't happen. It's not happening at all. And also they don't collaborate in the space, right? A lot of countries actually, they don't collaborate anymore in the space for like a few years already, right? So the thing about like this technology that people are sharing, being open source, whatever, is like a very romantic, but in the back, actually, nobody's actually helping each other, right? So that's the thing. This guy actually, he was like telling me that even Google, right? They don't share everything they have for the world. They keep very private a lot of stuff, and because also, you know, like if you're not American, by the way, also, you cannot even access the files of some projects internally on Google. So that's another crazy thing, right? Like, so they have a lot of people from other countries that work on Google. They work on the AI team, but if you're not American, you cannot access projects, which is like makes this war going crazy more and more, right? So, so we don't know what's gonna happen, but let's see, right? Like we don't know. I don't know. If I know, like they're gonna maybe chase me, right? But I don't know. I'm just saying that, okay, just to make sure for the record. Okay, so what else? This is like a real case that I want to share a little bit what happened, because I was working on this project and we designed it 40 plus like user flows on FigJam, a lot, I would say. And in some point, people told me, hey, Juno, we need to organize because we need to build a documentation to share with all the like developers. And also we need to check because we are building this game and we need to like make sure that we are following all the compliances because, you know, like gaming companies, they need to follow a lot of them in order to release for kids games, right? And I think 2 weeks ago, even Microsoft paid another fine. All the gaming companies, they pay like a huge amount of fines because of that. And we were like, okay, so let's build the documentation, make sure that nothing is going wrong. And they assigned this task for me, right? Because I start doing the user flow. So like, okay, so it's natural that you can keep doing that, Juno. I was like, okay, so it's not gonna be fun my next few days, but anyways, I will do that. And I was super lazy, I will be honest, right? Like sometimes you're not very inspired to do that. And I was like, okay, I start like typing, right? Okay, so let's do this. I was like, okay, let me write. User needs to do that and this, that. If something wrong happen, they need to, like prompt this message to the user, blah, blah, blah. That's boring. So what I did, I use Google Docs, very simple, right? I use Google Docs just to, like speak, and Google was writing for me automatically, right? I was like, okay, user flow number 1. I was just using my microphone. User do that, and they just click here, then go there, and blah, blah, blah. They go to the next screen. The next screen is going to show like the input field, blah, 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 blah. And I finished that. I copied that, pasted on Notion, and asked Notion to rewrite that, organize it. And Notion did a pretty good job, I would say. Notion break that on different steps, step 1 or 1.1, whatever, they broke every step for me. And I was like, keep doing that, right? One by one, one by one, one by one. Around like, I don't know, on the 16, 17 user flow that I was doing, of course, you're tired, you're a human, right? And you were like, okay, so I'm super tired. I was like, okay, so user needs to do that, because sometimes it's very repetitive, right? Like the flows. User needs to do this and need that, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so just rewrite that and organize the user flow for me. So what Notion did, Notion, because I was using the same page, right, on Notion did, no, user needs to do this first. According to that flow, like a flow 3.1, user needs to do this first before doing that. It was very interesting because Notion was like a pretty much fixing the flow for me, right? They were like, okay, so Juno, you're wrong. Okay, so you have to do this first. I was like, okay, that's not a problem. You do just that. And I was just reviewing. Of course, sometimes they add too much information. I was like reducing just to be good enough. And I was just keep going. And a lot of time, I will say, not only one time, Notion AI fixed the user flow for me, right? So that's the crazy thing, because if you rely on humans, right, because we are going to be tired, right, like we are going to, not be keeping up with all the small details in a huge project, AI for sure will help us. But also, that's the thing, we are just giving more and more insights for AI for the future. So I'm not sure how dangerous this will be, right? Or how dangerous this will be for companies also, because let's say I'm working a very specific private project for the company, but this is going to the AI, and AI is processing. And let's say that someone is creating a very similar project in another gaming company, and they need to collect information, do something very similar. You don't know if this information is going to competitors or other people, right? So that's the crazy thing, because you are just giving food for this AI, and they don't know if you work for this company or another company, or these are competitors, whatever. So that's the only thing that sometimes concerns me about using too much, because you don't know how this is gonna end up, right? All right, so thinking about that, that's the thing. Just the Q&A. Don't ask about the horoscope sign, date of birth, those things I don't answer at all. Okay.
Well, before we do that, let's take ourselves off mute and give Juno a round of applause. Yay! That was great.
Thank you. And by the way, let me just leave that one also. If you guys want to connect with me, feel free also. And if you want to read a little bit more about the things that I talk on my newsletter, feel free to scan here. Okay.
Cool. All right, so the way we will handle the Q&A, I know there were some questions in the chat, but I don't want it to just be the chat. Feel free to raise your hand using the raise hand feature on Zoom. If you want to ask a question, we'll kind of alternate and we'll do it that way. All right, so first question, Juno, are there any tips and tricks to refine your prompts on ChatGPT, especially to refine the initial output?
Yeah, so I noticed like using like for different contexts, you have to be very, very specific sometimes, you know, like because depending if you just prompt like a very open or very wide, like they cannot come up very precise the answers, right? So I noticed that that's the thing. A lot of people, they write very extensive prompts, right, for ChatGPT or other any AI tool, because these give like a much better context, right? That's the thing, because it's like you have to give a context in one prompt, but having like ChatGPT or any other AI tool is like you are building the context also, right? Because you just, oh no, it's not that, fix this, fix that, whatever, and this will improve. So I will test different prompts and make like a very clear the first one for sure. That was my from my personal tests.
Thanks. Aliana, I see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah. So Juno, thank you again for your presentation and kind of igniting this whole discussion that we also had on the side in the chat. I do have a question about something. I'm wondering if you think this would be more of a brushing up on skills thing or just to ask ChatGPT. So I've been working at a company and we work with deafblind individuals, and I've been creating some web pages that haven't existed yet. It's not like redesign, it's just like something completely new. One of the people on our team is deafblind. So we have been communicating through email, sometimes through speaking through Zoom, because she does have a hearing aid. She still has some residual hearing. But my question is, would you suggest I put like any kind of way to, how do I word this? I haven't actually verbalized this before, like having a better way to streamline the process of having somebody who is blind test a web page, besides what I did, which was go onto WordPress and make preview pages and actually build out all the pages, because how else was she supposed to test it? So I guess the question is that a ChatGPT question or more of a like brush up on figuring out how to do those skills in a software? Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the question. Like, that's a very interesting question, because I think there's different parts, right, on this question. I think to make sure that that ChatGPT or any other AI tool could help you, I think there's like some tools that potentially can help you to streamline this process, but I'm not sure if ChatGPT will be good enough to do that, because that's another thing. I didn't test the paid version, right? I know that the paid version, you have like extra features that probably could help you in some other contexts, especially like if you have to share like one a screenshot, whatever, images, whatever, audio files, whatever, is much more advanced. I didn't test that, but will be something, you know, like to explore, I would say, you know. Actually, if you have like any extra information, I will be happy also to try to test on my side.
Thank you.
All right, we got another question from the chat from Jana Hamilton. Where's the line of like sharing business information? In other words, like I know maybe some companies are nervous about feeding too much company data into ChatGPT. Do you have any thoughts on that, on where the line is?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like I know that some companies, because of that, I know that Samsung, right? Like that was an article about that. It's prohibit for like employees to use because of that. But I think not only them, but a lot of other companies, they are doing that, some policies to make sure that nobody's sharing that information, because that could be considered, you know, like a sharing, like a private information from the company in another, like a public area, which makes sense. So I know that only, maybe that's the thing, someone will create a service that filter that and save data only for that specific company. But for now, I think it's a little bit dangerous for sure. And the companies probably can sue, because sue the person, whatever, because it's a public area, right? That you're, it's almost like a kind of like is almost building a web page public, where Google can crawl that information and add on Google database, right?
Yes.
But the difference, because you have like an input field that you just send directly to the database, right? So it's like very similar.
Madison, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Hello, Juno. Thank you for your time. I entered this meeting a little bit late, so I'm not sure if you previously answered this question. But my question is, what do you think design looks like in the future to you, especially with like plagiarism laws with design and such, like seeing, especially when you showed as well in the presentation, how you can ask it to make user flows and everything like that. It's kind of like giving the ideas for you or creating their own apps. So I was wondering, like, where you see AI taking design, especially, or if you think that, like, I don't know, designers should stop using things like ChatGPT, because you can't have AI without humans being the answers, and that's how every question and every request that's being made is helping improve it. So I'm like, do you suggest everyone just like stop using AI? I know that's going to be really hard, but stop using AI so like it can keep jobs for people, or stop the plagiarism and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good question, because also like for on the gaming company, we have been talking about a lot about that, of course, right? Because we have a lot of like a very talented people that they know how to draw, do 3D stuff like in a very advanced way. But also we tested like, oh, because sometimes we need an icon, whatever. So someone on the team, oh, let me just request like me joining whatever, like to build a 3D icon. And actually it was pretty good. Even the team, our team, they were like, oh, we can use this as an inspiration. But that's the thing, like right now, maybe it's not the most perfect, because asking like artists, like people that work on 3D, all this stuff, they can still see like is the same thing for like a UI, right? Like if you work in UI, you can see there's like a few things that a little bit off here or there. But that's the thing. That's the thing about the what I was telling in the beginning. The point is like AI is learning and learning and learning, and maybe today is not good, but maybe in 6 months, 1 year will be perfect, right? For us. So stop using, as you mentioned. I also believe it's going to be something really hard for the future, because that's the thing about the convenience of like using that, or even using AI to get a job, right? Like whatever, people will keep doing that for the future. So trying to build policies, things like that may not work also, because you just need like a people that needs to be really honest with that, right? Like to share that they never use it. Yeah, that's the question mark also in my head. That's not gonna change. As I mentioned, my sister's attorney, and we have been talking about that sometimes. The only thing that on her point of view is like as humans right now, the only thing, and especially like politicians, right, that we care is power, right? And there's no human, there's no politician that is going to handle the power to a computer, right? So if because we were talking, oh, attorneys, they will face a bad time really soon. But actually, that's the thing. If you have a judge and someone takes a computer to talk with the judge, of course the computer will be way smarter than a human, right? To create arguments to win a case. But that's the thing. As humans, we don't want to handle this power to computers. So judges, governments, things like this, they're not gonna allow that. You need to be represented by a human, right? You cannot be here with a computer, right? So so her like a point of view makes sense, because humans, as humans, we care too much about power, right? And that's the thing that that's going to happen on the next election for sure. Because for example, I know that some AI tools from US, they're not allowed to like use those things for like a change faces or build things, fake news, all this stuff. But that's the thing, humans, they want the power, and probably they will pay on the dark web, whatever, to create those fake news, fake videos, fake voice, whatever, to win the election, right? Because what people cares is about power, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
yeah.
There was another question in the chat from Eliana, and I want to ask this just so Juno, you can make your point clear for everyone on the same page. Eliana says, so is the job here just to basically master ChatGPT and not really think for ourselves and brainstorm on our own? That's kind of disheartening. I know that's not what you were saying, but I wanted you to have a chance to answer that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, ChatGPT is not perfect yet, also, right? Like, because that's the thing about like the context. Sometimes it's gonna be a little bit biased, like some of the things that they are gonna suggest to you, because they just have that data, right? Like from the web, right? So let's say about very sensitive topics, right? Like they're gonna put like a whole Discover America, whatever. That is like the truth is the like a people that's considered heroes for some people, but all the movements that have been changing that or trying to change that, it's going to be considered like less important, right, for this AI. So that's the thing. I think we really need to think by ourselves as humans more and more. I think this will be super important, because other than that, we are going to believe on all these things that people tell us. So that's the problem, right? As human, we believe on the stories, right? And ChatGPT is mastering how to tell stories to humans, right? So that's why we need to think by ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to, you know, just read the news, whatever, and believe in things that is not true, right?
Thank you. Let me see. Julie asked, do you think there will be opportunities for companies to purchase big data or privacy rights from AI tools?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a huge thing for the future, you know, because they will try, you know, like to block information, or trying to build like a small scenarios only for the company, or like it's going to be like a crazy thing for sure. I'm not sure like exactly how they're going to do that, but this will happen for sure. Not only that, but also a lot of products that it doesn't make sense. I even have like I have this small joke on my newsletter that I was writing about AI one day, and it was like that's the thing, like especially like financial advisors, that pretty much they just if you ask them, like if you call a bank, just try to do that, they will just suggest you to invest on like a 3 to 5 ETF 500 like a largest company in US, and that's it, right? Like you don't need like a human to do that, right? Like AI will like of course do that way faster and optimize, not really even investing or like other data privacy, whatever. So it's gonna be insane, I think, in this, especially on privacy things.
All right. We've got time for one more question. I know people are hungry for dinner. Does anyone want to raise your hand and ask the final question? I'll let people raise their hand this time. Anyone? Well, I know Madison just asked one. We'll default to that one. What do you think the day-to-day will look like for designers in the future?
Yeah, I think as a designer, right, like we are always trying to solve problems, right, like as a base, right, like so probably the problems that we are gonna say like solve in the near future maybe it's gonna be different, right, like we need to adapt for different scenarios. So people will use AI, people are gonna buy thousands of like a Apple Vision Pro next year for sure, because Apple, they have this power, and people will buy Apple products, and a lot of things will change, right? Like maybe people will face new issues on their lives, and as designers, because now nobody wants to remove the Apple Vision Pro, people are gonna walk like that, so we'll start raising a lot of other problems, right? And as a designer, we're gonna incorporate, of course, a lot of those tools in our process, right? Maybe one thing that I was thinking that will be super useful is having like an accessibility, like a AI or plugin that can help us to during like a process that, you know, a lot of people do UI design, but nobody checks, right? Like the things, but will be nice to have something like that in the future, right? So we have to kind of embrace that, even if like we don't know the future, right? But also just be careful to not fall in love with those tools, right? Because it can be dangerous for us.
And with that, thank you so much, everyone. Put yourself off mute once again, and let's give one more big round of applause.
Thank you.
This
Thank
was
you. Thank
great.
you, everybody.
Yeah, and exciting thing, this is the first time we ever hit our Zoom limit of attendees. So good job, Juno. Good job, everyone. And this recording will be on YouTube, so you can review back to it when that goes up. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Please don't forget about next month's event. It is in person, so sorry for people not in Atlanta. It's July 20th. It's at FanDuel, and Jasmine Henschel is going to be talking about behavioral personas. So don't miss that one. Go to our meetup page, and then you can RSVP there. All right, everyone but Nia and Juno, go ahead and log off. Have a good night. Enjoy dinner. And don't forget to connect with the people you met during breakouts. So, all right.
Great presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. And Juno and Nia will just stay put. I'm also going to save this chat for you, Juno, because a lot of good questions did come up. I figured they could be good prompts for content and stuff, because I know
Yeah,
you.
sure, sure. It will be super cool to have like those questions, because I can, yeah.
We didn't get to everyone's question, but yeah, they were. It was a very active chat, so good job, Juno.
Nice. No, thank you for the space. Was super cool.
Yeah,
Really
awesome.
enjoy.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan, Catherine, don't take it personally. I'm gonna just remove you. But have a good night. All right, I'll remove. Yep. Bye, Jordan. See you next time. Okay, cool. Yay. How do you feel, Juno?
Pretty good. Was like a very interesting.